In a village of 600 people, 200 miles from the nearest town, a single 3,000-pound animal can mean the difference between eating and starving. One walrus provides 1,500 pounds of meat. It feeds 40 families for weeks. It's worth $15,000 in food value alone, in a place where a gallon of milk costs $12 and ground beef costs $18 per pound. Arctic communities call it survival. Conservation groups call it tradition. Outsiders call it controversial. But in the northernmost reaches of Alaska, where grocery stores are a luxury and supply chains collapse every winter, the walrus hunt isn't optional. It's the foundation of food security for thousands of people living at the edge of human habitation. How does butchering one massive marine mammal sustain an entire Arctic town through winter? By the end of this documentary, you'll understand the complete journey from hunt to table. You'll see why this ancient practice remains essential in the 21st century, and you'll discover why urban misconceptions about subsistence hunting miss the entire reality of Arctic survival. Stay with us because this story challenges everything you thought you knew about hunting, sustainability, and what it takes to survive in Earth's harshest environment. The Arctic walrus, how butchering a $15,000 walrus feeds an entire Arctic town. The village of Gamble sits on St. Lawrence Island, just 38 miles from the Siberian coast. Population, 683 people. The nearest major town is over 200 miles across open ocean. No roads connect this place to anywhere. Supplies arrive by plane when weather permits, or by barge once or twice each summer. For 8 months of the year, sea ice surrounds the island, and temperatures regularly drop to 30 below zero. In this environment, the grocery store exists, but it's not what you'd recognize as a lifeline. A pound of ground beef costs $18. Fresh vegetables arrive sporadically and rot quickly. Processed foods dominate the shelves because they survive the journey and the storage conditions. A family trying to eat from the store alone would spend over $2,000 monthly, an impossible sum when employment opportunities are scarce and seasonal. This is why the walrus matters. For over 2,000 years, the Yupik people of St. Lawrence Island have hunted walrus as their primary food source. It's not sport, it's not recreation, it's subsistence, a legal and cultural practice protected by the Marine Mammal Protection Act, which recognizes that Alaska Native communities depend on marine mammals for nutritional and cultural survival. The walrus hunt follows seasonal patterns. Pacific walruses migrate through the Bering Strait between the Chukchi Sea and the Bering Sea following sea ice. Spring and fall bring walrus close to coastal villages during these migrations. Hunters wait for the right conditions, clear weather, manageable seas, and the appearance of walrus herds within range of small boats. But this documentary isn't just about hunting. It's about what happens after. It's about the butchering process that turns a massive marine mammal into usable food within hours. It's about distribution systems that ensure every family receives a share. It's about traditional cooking methods that have preserved culture through generations. And it's about economic realities that most people living in cities will never understand. The walrus is more than food. It's community currency, cultural inheritance, and survival insurance all combined into one animal. Understanding this hunt means understanding that in the Arctic, nature isn't something you visit on vacation. It's something you negotiate with daily, something that determines whether you eat or go hungry, whether your culture survives or disappears. This is the complete story, from ice to table, of how Arctic communities turn one of the ocean's most imposing creatures into the foundation of their food security. Long before European contact, long before commercial fishing fleets, long before the concept of a grocery store existed anywhere on Earth,
The Yupik and Inupiaq peoples of Arctic Alaska developed one of the most sophisticated marine hunting cultures in human history. The walrus was central to this system, providing not just food, but materials for survival in an environment that offered almost nothing else. Archaeological evidence from St. Lawrence Island dates continuous human habitation back at least 2,000 years. These weren't temporary camps. These were permanent communities, thriving in conditions that would kill an unprepared person in hours. The secret to their survival was complete utilization of marine mammals, and the walrus was the cornerstone species. Traditional walrus hunts happened from umiak, skin boats made from walrus or bearded seal hides stretched over driftwood frames. These boats were light enough to pull across ice, stable enough to handle Arctic seas, and quiet enough to approach marine mammals without startling them. Hunters used harpoons with detachable ivory heads connected to sealskin floats. The technology was brilliantly simple. Strike the walrus, let the float tire it out, then dispatch it safely. But the hunt was only the beginning. Every part of the walrus served a purpose. The meat fed families. The blubber provided oil for lamps and heat. The hide became boat covers, rope, and housing material. The ivory tusks created tools, weapons, and art. The bones became structural elements for homes and sleds. The intestines became waterproof clothing and containers. Even the stomach became storage bags. In an environment where resources were scarce and winters were lethal, waste wasn't just impractical, it was deadly. The cultural framework around walrus hunting emphasized respect and restraint. Hunters took only what the community needed. They gave thanks to the animal's spirit. They shared the harvest across family networks, ensuring no one went hungry. These weren't superstitions. These were practical survival strategies that maintained community cohesion and resource availability for generations. Then came contact with the outside world, and everything changed. In the late 1800s, commercial whaling ships arrived in Arctic waters. They hunted walrus not for subsistence, but for ivory and oil. Between 1860 and 1880, commercial hunters killed an estimated 200,000 Pacific walruses. The population collapsed. Native communities dependent on walrus for survival faced starvation. The impact was catastrophic. Villages that had existed for centuries suddenly lost their primary food source. Families starved. Cultural practices built around the hunt began to disappear. It took decades for walrus populations to recover, and they only did so after commercial hunting ended and protections were put in place. The Marine Mammal Protection Act of 1972 changed the legal landscape. It prohibited commercial hunting of walrus, but explicitly protected subsistence hunting by Alaska Native communities. The law recognized a crucial distinction. These communities weren't depleting populations, they were maintaining traditional practices that had sustained both people and walrus populations for millennia. Today's subsistence hunt exists in this framework. It's regulated but protected. Hunters must be Alaska Native. The harvest must be for subsistence, not commercial sale, though sharing and trading within Native communities is allowed. Each village has informal quotas based on population needs. The state and federal agencies monitor walrus populations to ensure sustainability. Modern equipment has entered the tradition. Aluminum boats with outboard motors have largely replaced skin boats. Rifles have replaced harpoons for the initial kill, making hunts safer and more humane. GPS and marine radios improve safety, but the core principles remain unchanged. Hunt with respect, use everything, share with the community, and pass the knowledge to the next generation. This subsistence tradition isn't ancient history, it's present reality for thousands of Alaska Natives. In villages like Gamble, Savanga, Point Hope, and Diomede, the spring and fall walrus hunts are still the most important events of the year. They determine food security for months ahead. They bring communities together in shared labor. They teach young people skills their survival might one day depend on. This isn't hunting for sport, this is hunting for survival, conducted by people whose ancestors perfected these practices over 2,000 years. And in a warming Arctic, where ice patterns are changing and traditional knowledge is being tested by climate disruption, these hunts represent both cultural resilience and adaptive necessity.
Let's examine the benefits first, because without understanding the value walrus provides, the practice itself seems incomprehensible to outsiders. Food security in the Arctic is not a simple problem. The economic benefits of a successful walrus hunt are staggering when you calculate actual value. A single adult walrus provides approximately 1,500 to 2,000 pounds of meat and blubber. At store prices for equivalent protein, this represents $15,000 or more in food value. But the real benefit isn't measured in dollars, it's measured in months of food security for families who have no other reliable protein source. The nutritional profile of walrus meat is exceptional for Arctic survival. It's extremely high in protein, averaging 20 to 25 grams per 100-gram serving. The fat content is substantial, providing the caloric density necessary for life in extreme cold. Walrus blubber, called muktuk when prepared, is rich in omega-3 fatty acids and fat-soluble vitamins, particularly vitamin D, which is crucial in an environment where sunlight disappears for months. The economic impact extends beyond individual families. A successful hunt employs the entire community. Hunters share the catch through traditional distribution networks called inunirak. Every family receives a portion, regardless of whether they participated in the hunt. This isn't charity, it's survival insurance. Your family receives meat this hunt, another family's husband leads the next hunt, and you receive meat again. The system ensures community-wide food security and maintains social bonds that are essential for survival in isolated environments. The cultural benefits are profound. Walrus hunting transmits knowledge across generations. Young men learn navigation, weather reading, marine mammal behavior, and hunting techniques by participating in hunts with elders. Young women learn butchering, preservation, and preparation methods by working with older women. These skills connect communities to their heritage and provide identity in a world that increasingly pressures indigenous cultures to assimilate. The zero-waste aspect is remarkable. Modern subsistence hunters maintain traditional practices of complete utilization. The meat is eaten fresh, frozen, or fermented into traditional foods. The blubber becomes cooking oil or is eaten raw. The hide is used for rope, boat repairs, and craft materials. The ivory tusks are carved into artwork and tools, which can be legally sold and provide one of the few income sources available in remote villages. The bones become tools or are boiled for soup. Even the whiskers have value in traditional crafts. But the challenges are substantial and growing more severe. Climate change is fundamentally altering Arctic ecosystems. Sea ice is forming later, breaking up earlier, and thinning overall. This affects walrus behavior and migration patterns. Walrus haul out on ice to rest between feeding dives. As ice diminishes, walrus are forced to haul out on beaches in massive groups, sometimes tens of thousands together. This creates dangerous crowding, and stampedes triggered by predators or disturbances can kill hundreds of animals, especially calves.
Changing ice also affects hunting safety. Traditional ice conditions that hunters have read for generations are becoming unpredictable. Ice that looks stable can break unexpectedly. Storms are becoming more severe. Open water seasons are extending, which sounds beneficial but actually increases danger.
exposing small boats to larger waves and worse weather. Population management is complex. Pacific walrus populations are estimated at approximately 280,000 animals, recovered from the commercial hunting collapse but vulnerable to climate disruption. Federal agencies monitor populations, but counting marine mammals across vast Arctic waters is imprecise. Subsistence harvests remove approximately 3,000 to 5,000 walruses annually, a sustainable rate if populations remain stable, but climate change introduces uncertainty. The physical danger of the hunt cannot be overstated. Walruses are enormous animals. Adult males reach 12 feet in length and weigh up to 4,000 pounds. They have 2-foot-long ivory tusks capable of puncturing boats or killing hunters. They're aggressive when threatened, especially mothers protecting calves. Hunting happens from small boats in freezing water, often miles from shore. If a boat capsizes, survival time in Arctic water is measured in minutes. Weather in the Arctic is viciously unpredictable. Conditions can change from calm to deadly within an hour. Fog rolls in without warning, making navigation impossible. Wind whips open water into violent chop. Ice can shift and trap boats. Every hunt carries the risk that hunters won't return. Communities maintain emergency protocols, but rescue is difficult and often impossible in bad weather. Global misconceptions create political and social challenges. Urban populations far removed from Arctic realities often view subsistence hunting as cruel or unnecessary. They see images of walrus hunts and react with horror, not understanding the context of survival, cultural tradition, and legal protection. This creates political pressure that threatens subsistence rights, despite the fact that these hunts are sustainable and essential. The economic challenge of modernization is paradoxical. While store food is expensive and often unavailable, modern equipment for safe hunting is also expensive. A reliable boat costs thousands of dollars. Outboard motors, rifles, ammunition, fuel, and safety equipment all require cash in communities where wage-earning opportunities are scarce. Many hunters work seasonal jobs in fisheries or oil fields to earn money to fund subsistence activities, a strange economic loop where you work in the cash economy to participate in the subsistence economy. Finally, there's the challenge of cultural transmission in a changing world. Young people in Arctic villages are connected to global culture through internet and social media. They see lives in cities, opportunities elsewhere, criticism of traditional practices. Some leave for education or employment and never return. Each generation that doesn't fully learn traditional skills weakens the community's ability to maintain subsistence practices. Yet, despite these challenges, the benefits remain overwhelmingly important. In an era of global food system fragility, Arctic communities maintain food sovereignty. In an age of cultural homogenization, they preserve traditions stretching back millennia. In an environment where nature still determines survival, they maintain the skills and knowledge to thrive. The walrus hunt continues because it must, because store food costs too much and doesn't provide nutrition for Arctic life, because communities depend on it, because culture depends on it, and because properly managed, it's sustainable indefinitely. The question isn't whether communities should hunt walruses. The question is how to support these communities as climate change disrupts the systems they've depended on for 2,000 years.
Spring arrives late in the Arctic, not with flowers, but with fracturing ice. On St. Lawrence Island, hunters watch the ice daily, reading conditions with knowledge passed down through generations. They're waiting for the specific combination of factors that makes a hunt possible: stable weather, manageable seas, and the arrival of walrus herds migrating north through the Bering Strait. The hunt begins days before anyone touches a boat. Experienced hunters scout from coastal cliffs, using binoculars and spotting scopes to locate walrus herds. They're looking for groups hauled out on ice floes or beach areas. They assess herd composition, watching for cows with calves, which they avoid. They monitor weather forecasts, though traditional weather reading,
Observing wind patterns, cloud formations, and animal behavior often proves more reliable. Equipment preparation is meticulous. Boats are inspected for damage, hulls are checked for cracks or weak spots, outboard motors are serviced, fuel lines tested, spark plugs replaced. Hunters pack emergency survival gear, extra fuel, dry bags with matches and fire-starting material, emergency rations, flares, marine radios, and GPS devices. They wear survival suits or multiple layers designed to provide some protection if they end up in the water. Weapons are prepared with equal care. Most hunters use large caliber rifles, typically .338 or .375 Magnum, powerful enough to penetrate walrus hide and bone to ensure quick, humane kills. Each rifle is cleaned, sighted, and test-fired. Ammunition is checked. Some hunters still carry traditional harpoons as backup, respecting both tradition and practicality. On hunt day, crews assemble before dawn. A typical hunting crew includes 3 to 5 men, though sometimes more. The crew leader is usually an experienced hunter, often an elder, who makes final decisions about safety and strategy. Younger hunters provide physical labor and learn by observation. Everyone understands their role without extensive discussion. This is practiced coordination built through repeated experience. The boats launch from rocky beaches, pushed through surf by the crew. Engines start and the journey begins. The distance traveled depends on where walrus were spotted, anywhere from a few miles to 20 or more. The ride across Arctic waters is cold, wet, and physically punishing. Waves slam against the hull, spray freezes on clothing. Everyone stays alert for ice, floating debris, or sudden weather changes. Approaching a walrus herd requires skill and restraint. Walruses have excellent hearing and will flee if they detect danger. Hunters slow the engines well before reaching the herd, approaching quietly from downwind when possible. They assess the situation, identifying the best targets, adults without calves, animals separated enough that taking one won't cause a dangerous stampede or escape into deep water where recovery would be impossible.
The shot is critical. Hunters aim for the brain or the spine just behind the skull. This ensures instant death, preventing suffering and preventing the walrus from escaping into the water. A wounded walrus that enters the ocean is lost, wasted, something traditional ethics and modern law both forbid. When the shot connects, there's no celebration, only immediate action. Walrus sink rapidly. The crew has seconds to reach the animal and secure it before it descends beyond recovery. Hunters use large hooks on ropes, driving them into the walrus hide or around flippers. Multiple crew members haul on ropes, fighting to keep the animal at the surface. A 3,000-pound walrus in water is nearly unmovable. This is where crew strength and coordination matter most. Sometimes hunters use floats, large buoys tied to the walrus to provide buoyancy. These are remnants of traditional methods adapted with modern materials. The floats keep the animal at or near the surface while the crew maneuvers to tow it. Towing a walrus back to shore is exhausting work. The animal creates enormous drag. Boats labor against the weight. Crews take turns managing the outboard motor and watching the tow rope. Everyone monitors weather constantly, knowing that conditions can deteriorate fast, and being caught far from shore with a walrus in tow is extremely dangerous. Reaching shore brings relief, but no rest. The work is just beginning. The crew beaches the boat and begins the immediate task of moving the walrus above the tide line. This requires multiple people, ropes, sometimes vehicles if available. Walrus are staggeringly heavy, and moving one on land is brutally physical labor. The entire process from shot to beach might take 2 to 6 hours, depending on distance, conditions, and complications. It's dangerous at every stage. Boats can capsize, equipment can fail, weather can trap hunters, ice can block routes home. Every year, hunters die in Arctic waters. Communities know the risks, mourn the losses, and continue hunting because survival requires it. But the successful hunt provides what nothing else can: food security for months ahead, cultural continuity, community cohesion, and the profound satisfaction of successfully harvesting from the ocean using skills refined over millennia. And now, beached on the rocky shore, the 3,000-pound walrus must be transformed from massive marine mammal into usable food before the meat spoils. The butchering begins. Butchering a walrus is a race against time and biology. Within hours of death, enzymes begin breaking down tissue. Temperature matters critically. In warm weather, meat can spoil in 6 to 8 hours. Even in Arctic cold, degradation happens. The community mobilizes because processing this much meat requires many hands, and every hour delayed is quality lost. The butchering happens on the beach where the walrus was landed, or, if possible, the animal is transported to a central processing area in the village. Either way, the work begins immediately. Women, men, elders, and teenagers all participate. This is community labor, and everyone who contributes receives a share of the harvest. The tools are surprisingly simple: large hunting knives with 6 to 8-inch blades, smaller detail knives for precision work, sharpening steels to maintain edges, large plastic tarps spread on the ground to keep meat clean, containers, bags, and coolers for collecting portions, rope and hooks for manipulating the carcass. The process starts with positioning. The walrus is rolled onto its back, exposing the chest and belly. This provides the best access to major muscle groups and organs. Multiple people brace the animal to keep it stable. The first cut is made along the center line of the belly, from throat to tail. This requires force. Walrus hide is over an inch thick in places, dense and tough. Beneath the hide is a layer of blubber, often 6 to 8 inches deep. The knife must penetrate both to reach the muscle beneath. Experienced butchers make this cut with confidence, knowing exactly how deep to go without puncturing internal organs. Once the belly is opened, the blubber layer is peeled back in sections. This is done carefully because blubber is valuable. It's cut into slabs, each weighing 20 to 30 pounds. These slabs are collected separately from the meat. They'll be rendered into oil, eaten raw as a traditional food, or used in cooking. With the blubber removed, the muscle is exposed. Walrus meat is dark red, similar to beef but denser. Butchers begin sectioning the meat, following natural muscle groups. The process is similar to butchering large terrestrial mammals. Major muscle groups are removed in large sections: the shoulders, the flanks, the haunches. Each section is cut away from the bone with sweeping knife strokes. The work is physically demanding. Walrus connective tissue is tough. Joints are massive. Butchers put their entire body weight into cuts. Knives must be resharpened constantly. Hands cramp from gripping. But the pace never slows because time matters. As major sections are removed, they're immediately sorted. The best meat, the prime cuts for major muscle groups, are set aside. Tougher sections, good for stewing or grinding, go into separate containers. Organs are carefully removed and inspected. The liver is valuable, rich in nutrients, though it must be eaten carefully as it contains high levels of vitamin A. The heart is prized. The kidneys are saved. The intestines are cleaned and can be used as casings or containers.
The skull receives special attention. The ivory tusks are valuable both culturally and economically. Federal law allows Alaska natives to sell ivory from legally harvested walruses. The tusks are removed by cutting through the bone base. This takes time and care because damaging the ivory reduces its value. Nothing is discarded without consideration. The bones are evaluated. Large bones with marrow are saved for soup or for dogs if the community keeps them. The hide scraps can be used for various purposes. Even blood is sometimes collected for blood soup, a traditional dish. Throughout the butchering, meat is kept as clean as possible. Knives are wiped frequently. Meat that touches the ground is trimmed. In villages with processing facilities, meat is moved indoors to refrigerated spaces as it's cut. In more remote situations, coolers packed with ice or simply the ambient Arctic cold preserve the meat. The entire primary butchering takes 6 to 10 hours for a large walrus. By the end, the massive animal has been reduced to sorted piles of meat, blubber, organs, bones, hide, and ivory. The beach or processing area is cleaned. Remains that won't be used are taken away from the village area. In traditional practice, these remnants are returned to the ocean with respect, acknowledging the animal's sacrifice. Now comes distribution. In some communities, the distribution follows traditional patterns. The hunter who killed the animal receives a specific portion. The boat captain receives a share. Each crew member receives portions. Elders who can no longer hunt receive shares. Widows and families without hunters receive portions. Every household in the village receives something. The system varies by community, but the underlying principle is universal. The harvest is shared. Distribution happens quickly. Families arrive with containers, coolers, and bags. Meat is divided, weighed sometimes, but often just assessed by experienced eyes. Within hours, the walrus has been distributed across dozens of households. A single animal that weighed 3,000 pounds is now feeding an entire community. Some meat is eaten immediately. Fresh walrus prepared the day of the hunt is considered a delicacy. The rest must be preserved. Some is frozen, cut into manageable portions and stored in home freezers or community freezers. Some is dried, cut into thin strips and air-dried in cold wind, creating a shelf-stable protein that can last months. Some is fermented in the traditional way, buried underground in containers where natural fermentation preserves the meat while developing complex flavors.
The efficiency is remarkable. From a 3,000-pound animal, communities waste almost nothing. Recovery rates for usable meat and blubber approach 90%. Compare this to industrial meat processing, where waste rates are often much higher, and you see that traditional subsistence practices are extraordinarily efficient. But efficiency isn't just about minimizing waste, it's about survival. Every pound of meat processed is a pound of protein that doesn't need to be purchased from a store at inflated Arctic prices. Every container of blubber is cooking oil and calories for winter. Every preserved portion is insurance against the lean months when hunting is impossible. The butchering of a walrus is brutal, exhausting work. It's also essential, skilled, and deeply embedded in cultural practice. The knowledge of how to efficiently process a massive marine mammal in hours is knowledge that can't be learned from books. It requires practice, observation, and participation over years. Young people learning these skills are learning more than butchering techniques. They're learning community cooperation, resource management, and the reality that survival in the Arctic depends on everyone contributing their labor and their knowledge. And when the butchering is finished and the meat is distributed, the final transformation awaits. From beach to cooking pot, from marine mammal to meal, the walrus completes its journey.
The walrus meat that arrives in Arctic kitchens carries the weight of tradition, necessity, and community effort. How it's prepared reflects thousands of years of culinary knowledge adapted to extreme environmental constraints and the unique properties of this particular protein source. Fresh walrus meat is prized immediately after the hunt. The flavor is strong, distinctly marine, similar to seal but richer. The texture is dense and muscular, requiring proper preparation to become tender. In Yupik households, the most traditional preparation is also the simplest, boiled meat. Large pots of water are set to boil,
often outdoors over propane burners or indoors on stoves. Walrus meat is cut into chunks, roughly 3 to 4 inches across. These go into the boiling water along with salt, the only seasoning in traditional preparation. The meat boils for several hours. Long cooking breaks down the dense muscle fibers and renders some of the fat. The result is tender meat that pulls apart easily, served with the broth as soup. This boiled walrus is typically eaten with seal oil, a condiment made from rendered seal blubber. The oil is poured over the meat or used as a dipping sauce. To outsiders, this seems unusual. To Arctic communities, it's essential. The fat provides calories necessary for surviving cold environments, and the flavor combination is deeply familiar and comforting. Another traditional preparation is aged meat or fermented walrus. This is not for the faint of heart or stomach. Fresh meat is placed in containers, traditionally seal pokes or modern plastic tubs, and left to ferment. The fermentation process, aided by natural bacteria and cold temperatures, preserves the meat while developing intense, pungent flavors. The result is sometimes called stink meat by outsiders, but communities that eat it consider it a delicacy. The fermentation also pre-digests some of the proteins, making nutrients more bioavailable. Dried walrus is common for preservation. Thin strips of meat are hung on drying racks in cold wind. The Arctic air freeze-dries the meat, removing moisture while preserving protein. Dried walrus is eaten as a snack or rehydrated in soups and stews. It's portable, shelf-stable, and calorie-dense, making it ideal for travel or for seasons when fresh meat is scarce. Modern Arctic kitchens blend traditional and contemporary techniques. Walrus is increasingly prepared using methods borrowed from mainstream American cuisine. Walrus steaks are pan-fried with onions and garlic. Ground walrus meat goes into spaghetti sauce or chili. Walrus roast is slow-cooked with vegetables in crock-pots. These adaptations make the meat more appealing to younger generations, accustomed to diverse flavors. Some innovative cooks have developed fusion approaches. Walrus tacos, seasoned with cumin and chili powder, have become popular in some communities. Walrus curry, incorporating Indian spices, appears on dinner tables. Walrus burgers, ground and formed into patties, are grilled during summer gatherings. These preparations respect the ingredient while acknowledging that culinary traditions evolve.
The blubber, or muktuk, is eaten in ways that might shock outsiders. Fresh blubber is cut into small cubes and eaten raw, often with soy sauce. The texture is chewy, the flavor rich and oily. The nutritional value is exceptional. Muktuk provides enormous caloric energy and essential fatty acids that help bodies regulate temperature in extreme cold. Rendered walrus oil serves multiple purposes. It's used as cooking fat, replacing expensive store-bought oils. It's mixed into traditional dishes. Some people take it by the spoonful as a nutritional supplement, particularly in winter when vitamin D from sunlight is unavailable. The oil is also used medicinally, applied to skin to prevent dryness and cracking in harsh wind. Walrus soup appears in countless variations. The most basic is simply meat boiled with water and salt. More elaborate versions include potatoes, onions, rice, and whatever vegetables are available. The bones are often boiled to extract marrow and nutrients, creating a rich, nourishing broth. On cold days, a pot of walrus soup becomes the center of family meals, served with pilot bread or fry bread. The cultural significance of sharing walrus meals extends beyond nutrition. When a successful hunt happens, community feasts follow. Families visit each other, bringing portions of meat to share or arriving to join meals. These gatherings reinforce social bonds, allow elders to tell hunting stories, and give younger generations direct experience of traditional foods and the cultural context around them. In modern times, some Arctic restaurants and community centers serve walrus to visitors, usually prepared in accessible ways. This serves both economic and educational purposes, showing outsiders that walrus is food, not just a conservation concern, and generating some income for communities. The preparation challenges are real. Walrus meat can be tough if not cooked properly. The strong flavor isn't universally loved, even within communities. Younger people sometimes prefer store-bought chicken or beef, familiar tastes from media and travel. This creates tension between tradition and modernity, between elders who grew up eating walrus as staple food and young people who have options their grandparents didn't.
But economic reality brings people back to traditional foods. When a family faces choosing between $18 per pound ground beef and free walrus from a community hunt, the calculation is clear. When a teenager working seasonal jobs wants to save money, walrus in the freezer becomes valuable. When global supply chains falter and store shelves empty, communities with freezers full of walrus meat don't panic. The meals created from one walrus are staggering in number. A single large animal, properly processed and distributed, might provide protein for 40 to 60 families for several weeks. Multiply this by several successful hunts per season, and you understand how walrus continues to anchor food security for entire villages. The cooking of walrus is inseparable from the hunting and butchering. You can't understand the meal without understanding the work that created it. You can't appreciate the flavor without knowing the risk taken to harvest it. You can't value the nutrition without recognizing the economic impossibility of replacing it with store-bought alternatives. Every pot of walrus soup, every plate of boiled meat, every cube of raw muktuk represents human adaptation to one of Earth's most extreme environments. It represents cultural resilience spanning millennia. It represents community cooperation and shared survival. And it represents a food system that, however brutal it appears to outsiders, functions sustainably and effectively. When families gather to eat walrus, they're not just consuming protein, they're participating in tradition, maintaining culture, and affirming their identity as Arctic people whose survival depends on the ocean and the animals within it. This is food with meaning far beyond calories. This is survival made visible, served on plates in houses perched at the edge of the habitable world.